Hello, thank you for coming to my webinar on user-centred design. I'm Andrea Lilly and I'm the digital consultant at GOS Interactive. Today we're going to be looking at the top methodologies and understanding their definitions. We're also going to walk through the principles and techniques, and I'm going to give some examples too. We're then going to look at the top tools for evaluating interfaces and information architecture, and I'm also going to show you some examples as well. And later, the importance of user experience for delivering superior customer engagement. Understanding methodologies. User experience design. This is how the user feels when they're interacting with the interface. It's their experience which is being designed. Are they having a good experience or a bad experience? This is where we look at the design features. Is it pleasing? Does it have a pleasing look and feel? And is there good usability? Usability is another methodology. It's about whether the interface is usable. Can the user navigate easily? Can the user see clearly to their goal? Is their destination easy to find? And can they understand the icons and the text? And can they get back to where they came from easily? Can the interface stand up to recognise usability heuristics? When thinking about usability, it's important to understand that usability, user interface design, user experience are all used in many other objects in life. Here's an example of a cockpit of a plane, but the same methodologies could be applied to a fax machine, a phone, a digital clock, or a radio. In addition to usability and user interface design and user experience, there's also information architecture. This is the navigational system used to move about the interface. The things that we would ask ourselves is the architecture logical? Is it contextual? Is it user-centered or consistent? Is it top task orientated or is it A to Z? And by this I mean, is the menu running from A to Z, or are you putting the most important tasks at the top? You might also want to consider separating menu items by category or by type. These are some of the things that you would consider when designing the information architecture. One of the things to consider about information architecture is whether you want to be consistent or whether you want to be user-centered. I've often found that consistency can be the friend of information architecture and usability and the enemy of user-centered design. A happy medium will always need to be met in order to design the perfect user interface. Another methodology is user-centered design. This is the design of interfaces which put the user first. When you're designing for user-centered design, you need to ask whether the most used tasks are presented to the user first. Are these tasks easy to do? Is there good usability and good information architecture to support your user-centered design? GOS has a set of user-centered design principles and methodologies. Our methodologies are designed to give a well-designed user interface. They're focused on the user's top tasks and designed to be fit for purpose. To start with, we run workshops. These are discovery workshops run throughout our discovery phase. We use demographics and produce personas. Here's an example of one of our project scoping workshops. This is where we get information from the clients about their goals and objectives for the project. We also do persona development workshops. This is so we can get to grips with the customer. So why create a persona? This is so we can focus on the customer's goals and needs. We want to improve the product quality, so knowing more about our users is key to designing shorter life cycles and better understanding. So what's a persona? Well, this is a fictional person, a representative characteristic of our customers. Here's an example of one of our persona development workshops. This is where our clients get together and discover who their personas are and really get to know their customers. Here's an example of a persona that's been developed through one of these workshops. As you can see, we have a persona called Joyce. She's from a middle-income family in a modern suburban area. 49 years old, a nurse, comes from Dumfries and is used to using a home PC and tablet. She prefers to use online, and she's a confident user of the web. This is the sort of information we like to gather about our users so we can find out what the best solutions are. Here's some large presentation banners that one of our customers have found useful for keeping the staff thinking about their customers and for use at demonstrations in the office and for presentation purposes. After looking at persona development, we also look at customer needs. We should get some of this information from the persona development workshops. We also look at task analysis. After looking at the task analysis, we look at customer journeys. Depending what the product is, you can sometimes equate a customer journey to looking through a supermarket with many products on offer. In this instance, you might want to think about how you want to place the items on the shelves. Should those items be grouped by task? Should they be sorted by A to Z? Or should like things be put together? Grouping items by task is very similar to our top tasks methodology. After we've done our top tasks, we look at information architecture development, and the way that we develop our information architecture is first done using card sorting. In order to do card sorting, we usually ask our clients to put together all their core content. This would mean that they'd have to do some sort of inventory of all the content they already have on their website. We ask them to sort all of this content out into the type of content that they want to keep, and then to make sure that they've marked all the items that they want to remove from the website ready for deletion. Once they've done this, we should have the core content ready for card sorting, although we don't want too much because it can often take too long to card sort large amounts. So we usually look to between 60 and 70 cards in total. Once the core content's been defined, we can then start card sorting. Card sorting is a way of getting the user's opinion on where certain parts of the website should be found. For instance, we'd be putting together the menu system for the information architecture of the website. What I have here is an example of card sorting online. On the left hand side we have a number of cards, and on the right hand side here we have a number of areas that have been specified by the test candidate. As you can see, this is an open card sort, which means that the users can actually name their own categories. Once all the categories have been named and all the cards have been sorted into those categories, and a number of test candidates have completed this exercise, I can then start to analyse the data. One of the things I do try to do is to look at the personas that have been made earlier and see if I can actually match some of these personas to some of the people that we're using as test candidates. It's not always possible to do this because you might be using people internally rather than externally, and unless you've actually asked your customers to take part in the card sorting exercise, you might not be able to cover all of your personas. But it's a good idea to have a go at seeing who from your test candidates fit the persona profiles that you've already developed. Here's an example of some of the output that I get from the card sorting exercise. This is a local council's website, and I wanted to take a look at some of the ways that this has actually been sorted and to show you what sort of results that I get. This is called a Similarity Matrix, and I get this from an online card sorting application which gives me some of this data, which is very useful for working out how the information architecture should be formed. This Similarity Matrix is very good for us actually seeing which cards belong in which category. For instance, we can see that Starter Forum and Staff Twitter and Staff News were actually put together by the test candidates. We can see, for instance, that What's On and Events were sorted by 78% of the test candidates. Also, for instance, that Report as Facilities Issue and Council Building and Facilities were put together here by 69% of the test candidates. So in doing this, you can actually see how many people have actually sorted certain cards together, and you can also see a metamorphosis of the different cards as they graduate away from one particular subject matter to another. For instance, this is more to do with news and events, and this area down here is more to do with meeting rooms and getting an ID badge. Here you can also see that some areas that were not normally grouped together have relationships with other areas within the information architecture. For instance, What's On and Destination are both related to each other because 69% of the candidates put those together. So if, for instance, you had a What's On page, you might want to have a associated link to this other area from the What's On page, because we can see that users are actually naturally putting those things together even though they weren't closely related within the card sorting exercise. Once the card sorting has been done, you can then start to develop your information architecture, and once you've done this, you can start to test the information architecture using tree testing. Here's an example of some tree testing which I've done recently. I uploaded the results of my card sorting to a tree testing application on the internet. This actually allowed me to upload the first level, the second level and the third level of the information architecture, and I was able to test whether the test candidates could find the particular cards they were looking for using the current information architecture. Out of a number of tasks which were given to the test candidates to complete, we had a couple of specific areas which failed quite badly, and here is an example on the right hand side. As you can see, when we asked test candidates to look for where they could apply for free school meals, we had a 34% fail rate, with 28% being an indirect fail. This meant that finding free school meals was going to be a problem within the information architecture. So what went wrong? Here's an example of what happened with this particular test. As you can see, free school meals was put inside the benefits, grants and funding section. But this meant people were looking for free school meals outside of this area, and in fact they were going down the schools and learning section to the schools, and they were allocating extra help in schools as the correct answer. This meant that we would have to rethink the information architecture to suit the user and not the actual structure of the organisation. Once the work and the advice had been given on the information architecture, we start looking at wireframe development. So now we put together the way that the pages are designed within the website. When we do this, we include where we'd expect to see images, where we'd expect to see links, social media, the top navigation, which is the information and architecture that we've just looked at. We'd also have a look at the footer content and also the search area and other utilities. Once the wireframes have been completed, we can now look at prototyping. This is when you put the wireframes together into an interactive experience. Once a prototype has been built, you can then look at user testing. Here is an example of first click testing. First click testing is when you upload some JPEGs of your wireframes online, and then you ask your test candidates to complete a number of tasks. This is just to give a first impression of your website to see whether things are easy to find straight away. In this example, you can see that there are a number of options on the screen: cookies and privacy, accessibility, login, content, and join. There's also search. If we ask the candidates to look for a particular item on the screen and time how long it takes for them to find that item, we also look at how many people clicked in one place if there were two options, just to see which option they went for and what time it took for them to get there. This first click testing allows us to see how the user interface performs on first impression. Once the user testing stage is over and the wireframes have been signed off, we move on to the graphical design stage. Then the website is built, it's validated, and a specification is written, which is tested at the end of the project. Once this is done, we implement the channels, we monitor the system performance, and we test goals and funnels with analytics. We do some multi-iterative testing, and we optimize the code for a great product. It's also important at this stage to do some analytics on the usage. We also do fit-for-purpose testing, which is where I get involved again with the user-centered design process. Fit-for-purpose testing is when we test that the design meets the specification. Here's an example of some testing that I've done for West Lothian Council. In order to test the interface, we set out a number of scenarios that would have to be completed by the test candidates. In order to do this, and using an online tool, we set out a start URL and a success URL for each task. The results that we got were quite good, but some of them had not worked very well. And this is because what we noticed was some of the success URLs were off-site and therefore gave a result that was false. But it was easy to go back and look and see where the users actually worked through the interface and where the problems had occurred. For instance, here is a path analysis for a particular task. The green ones here are actually the completed tasks, but it shows the flow the users took when working their way through the interface, and it actually allowed me to analyse the results and to find out exactly what went wrong in the interface, and then to give advice on what could be done to correct the problems that had arisen. Once the fit-for-purpose testing has been completed, we run satisfaction surveys. Any new legislation might mean a new top task. We implement these updates to the service, and the service is improved continuously. So here are our user-centered design principles. in a process which we regard as all about customer needs. Here are some other top tools which are used for evaluating user interfaces. This is Heuristic Evaluation. This is where we report based on recognised usability heuristics. For instance, we report where the system fails and create a list of issues to be resolved. This will help to gather evidence of issues and initiate improvements. If you look up heuristic evaluation on the internet, you can find a list of these important user interface heuristics to test against. It's very useful, and I would recommend looking at this when you look at your own user interface every time, and you'll see how your interface can be improved. If you don't want to go for a long-winded and detailed evaluation like a heuristic evaluation, you can always go for an expert evaluation. This would be a quick and dirty review which would expose quick wins and long-term goals. It'll also help you to gather evidence for quick fixes and things that you need to plan ahead for. So what's the importance of user experience? Is it a phrase used too liberally? UX often embraces the terms of usability, human interaction, HCI, accessibility, performance, and graphic design, to name but a few. So why is it important? Well, it has an impact on marketing, it has an impact on sales, and whether users can complete tasks. It can increase online interactions and decrease the amount of phone calls made to customer services. It can also improve customer services because the information that the user's looking for can be found easily. Thank you very much for listening to my webinar, and please let me know if you have any questions.